Hey, welcome back to Coin Chronicles. This is Bryce. I hope you're doing well. Today we will take a look at the history of the 1960s, from the year 1960 to 1969, and we will look at some coins from each year. First, we will cover the history of the year 1960. In the year 1960, U.S. Senator John F. Kennedy is nominated for president and wins the 1960 presidential election in a close race against Vice President Richard Nixon. At age 43, he becomes the youngest man elected president. Elvis Presley returns home from Germany to the U.S. after being away on a military duty for 2 years. The United States announces that 3,500 American soldiers will be sent to Vietnam. Northwest Airlines Flight 710 crashes near Tell City, Indiana, killing all 61 people on board. The United States launches navigation satellite Transit 1B. President Eisenhower signs the Civil Rights Act of 1960 into law. A Soviet MiG fighter north of Murmansk in the Barents Sea shoots down a 6-man RB-47. 2 officers survive and are imprisoned in Moscow's Lubyanka prison. The giant 9.4 Valdivia Chilean earthquake occurs, killing from 1,000 to 6,000 people. Hurricane Donna kills 50. In Moscow, after the downing of a U-2 plane, pilot Francis Gary Powers is sentenced to 10 years imprisonment by the Soviet Union for espionage. The Polaris missile, the Navy's first submarine-launched ballistic missile, is test-launched. A United Airlines DC-8 collides with a TWA Lockheed Constellation over Staten Island, New York City, killing all 128 passengers on both planes and 6 people on the ground. And the halogen lamp, the first functioning laser, Etch-a-Sketch, fentanyl, Excedrin, and Trident gum are invented, and the songs It's Now or Never, Are You Lonesome Tonight, The Twist, Alley Oop, Kathy's Clown, Everybody's Somebody's Fool, I'm Sorry, Way Down Yonder in New Orleans, Volare, Calendar Girl, and Theme from a Summer Place are released. Now we will take a look at the 1960 Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1960 Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Now let's take a look at the 1960 Washington Quarter. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1960 Washington Quarter. Now we'll take a look at the 1960 D Franklin half dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1960 D Franklin half dollar. Now we will cover the history of the year 1961. In the year 1961, at the National Reactor Testing Station near Idaho Falls, Idaho, atomic reactor SL-1 explodes, killing 3 technicians. President Eisenhower gives his farewell address, warning of increased power of a military-industrial complex. John F. Kennedy is sworn in as the 35th president, and Lyndon B. Johnson is sworn in as the 37th vice president. The United States launches its first test of the Minuteman I intercontinental ballistic missile. Element 103, lawrencium, is first synthesized in Berkeley, California. The Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba begins, and it fails by April 19th. A Sabina Boeing 707 crashes near Brussels, Belgium, killing 73, including the entire United States figure skating team and several coaches. The 23rd Amendment to the U.S. Constitution is ratified, allowing Washington, D.C. residents to vote in presidential elections. President Kennedy announces before a special joint session of Congress his goal to put a man on the moon. A standoff between Soviet and American tanks in Berlin, Germany, heighten Cold War tensions. Robert M. White records a world record speed in a rocket plane of 4,093 miles per hour, making him the first pilot to fly a winged aircraft at 6 times the speed of sound, Mach 6. President Kennedy sends 18,000 military advisors to South Vietnam, and the first American helicopters arrive in Saigon. And the electronic spreadsheet, wearable computer, cordless tools, chatter telephone, Sprite, and Pampers are invented, and the songs Stand By Me, Runaway, Crazy, I Fall to Pieces, Hit the Road Jack, The Lion Sleeps Tonight, Sukiyaki, Blue Moon, Can't Help Falling in Love, Hello Mary Lou, and Stranger on the Shore are released. Now we'll take a look at the 1961 Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1961 Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Now we'll take a look at the 1961 D Washington Quarter. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1961 D Washington Quarter. Now we'll take a look at the 1961 D Franklin half dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1961 D Franklin half dollar. Now we will cover the history of the year 1962. In the year 1962, the United States Navy SEALs are activated. SEAL Team 1 is commissioned in the Pacific Fleet, and SEAL Team 2 in the Atlantic Fleet. American Airlines Flight 1 and American Airlines Boeing 707 crashes on takeoff at New York International Airport after its rudder separates from the tail, killing all 87 passengers and 8 crew members on board. In the Ash Wednesday storm of 1962, the mid-Atlantic East Coast storm kills 40 people and injures over 1,000. The Taco Bell fast food restaurant chain is founded by Glenn Bell in Downey, California. A Cuban military tribunal convicts 1,179 Bay of Pigs attackers. The Century 21 Exposition World's Fair opens in Seattle, Washington, opening the Space Needle for the first time. Air France Flight 007, Boeing 707, on a charter flight carrying cultural and civic leaders from Atlanta, Georgia, overruns the runway at Orly Airport in Paris, killing 130 out of 132 passengers. The first Walmart store opens for business in Rogers, Arkansas. AT&T's Telstar, the world's first commercial communication satellite, is launched into orbit and activated. The Little Feller 1 becomes the last atmospheric test detonation at the Nevada test site. President John F. Kennedy uses the words, "We choose to go to the moon," at a speech at Rice University. A U-2 flight over Cuba takes photos of Soviet nuclear weapons being installed beginning the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the pager, cordless phone, McDonald's Filet-O-Fish, now and later candy, holography, and Arco lamp are invented, and the songs Return to Cinder, I Can't Stop Loving You, Telstar, Breaking Up is Hard to Do, End of the World, Green Onions, If I Had a Hammer, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, Monster Mash, and Roses Are Red, My Love are released. Now we'll take a look at the 1962 Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1962 Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Now we'll take a look at the 1962 D Washington Quarter. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1962 D Washington Quarter. Now we'll take a look at the 1962 Franklin Half Dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1962 Franklin Half Dollar. Now we will cover the history of the year 1963. In the year 1963, George Wallace becomes governor of Alabama and proclaims segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever in his inaugural speech. Travel, financial, and commercial transactions by U.S. citizens to Cuba are made illegal by the Kennedy administration. Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 705 crashes in the Florida Everglades, killing all passengers aboard. The Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary on Alcatraz Island in the San Francisco Bay closes at the order of Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy. The U.S. nuclear submarine Thresher sinks 220 miles east of Cape Cod, and all 129 aboard die. Thousands of African Americans, many whom are children, are arrested while protesting segregation in Birmingham, Alabama. Public Safety Commissioner Eugene Connor unleashes fire hoses and police dogs on demonstrators. Zip codes are introduced in the United States. The United States, the United Kingdom, and Soviet Union sign a nuclear test ban treaty. Martin Luther King, Jr. delivers I Have a Dream speech on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial to an audience of at least 250,000 people. The 16th Street Baptist Church bombing in Birmingham, Alabama, kills 4 children and injures 22. In Dallas, President John F. Kennedy is assassinated by Lee Harvey Oswald, while Texas Governor John B. Connally is seriously wounded. Shortly after, Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson is sworn in as president. And the lava lamp, computer mouse, Maxwell House instant coffee, the modern hang glider, and Fruit Loops are invented. And the songs The Pink Panther Theme, It's My Party, Forget Him, Blue Velvet, Puff the Magic Dragon, Surfin' USA, Up on the Roof, Java, Hello Mutta, Hello Fada, and Green Green are released. Now we will take a look at the 1963 Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1963 Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Now we will take a look at the 1963 D Washington Quarter. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1963 D Washington Quarter. Now we will take a look at the 1963 D Franklin half dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1963 D Franklin half dollar. Now we will cover the history of the year 1964. In the year 1964, Senator Barry Goldwater of Arizona announces that he will seek the Republican nomination for president. In his first State of the Union address, U.S. President Lyndon B. Johnson declares a war on poverty. The Beatles vault to the #1 spot on the U.S. singles charts for the first time with I Want to Hold Your Hand. President Johnson announces that the U.S. has developed a jet airplane capable of sustained flight at more than 2,000 miles per hour and altitudes of more than 70,000 feet. Malcolm X, suspended from the Nation of Islam, says in New York City that he is forming a black nationalist party. The first Ford Mustang is manufactured by the Ford Motor Company in Dearborn, Michigan. The Good Friday earthquake on March 27, 1964, the most powerful earthquake in U.S. history, at a magnitude 9.2, strikes south-central Alaska, killing 125 people, causing massive damage to Anchorage, Alaska. 400 to 1,000 students march through Times Square, New York, and another 700 in San Francisco, in the first major student demonstration against the Vietnam War, while smaller marches occur in Boston, Seattle, and Madison, Wisconsin. President Johnson signs the Civil Rights Act of 1964 into law, abolishing racial segregation in the United States. In the Philadelphia 1964 race riot, tensions between African American residents and police lead to 341 injuries and 774 arrests. Incumbent President Lyndon B. Johnson defeats Republican Barry Goldwater in the 1964 presidential election. The 1-hour stop-motion animated classic, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, is broadcasted for the first time on NBC. U.S. coinage, such as dimes, quarters, half dollars, and dollars, were minted in 90% silver until this year of 1964. The IBM System 360, 8-track tape, action figures, Diet Pepsi, Lucky Charms, Pop-Tarts, Nutella, and Sharpie marker are invented, and the songs Love Me Do, I Get Around, Everybody Loves Somebody, We'll Sing in the Sunshine, Chapel of Love, Dawn, Go Away, My Girl, A World Without Love, Walk On By, The House of the Rising Sun, Chug-a-Lug, and Hey Little Cobra are released. Now we'll take a look at the 1964 Lincoln Memorial cent proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1964 Lincoln Memorial cent proof. Now we'll take a look at the 1964 D Washington quarter. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1964 D Washington quarter. Now we will take a look at the 1964 Kennedy half dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1964 Kennedy half dollar. Now we will cover the history of the year 1965. In the year 1965, President Johnson proclaims his Great Society during his State of the Union address. President Johnson begins his first full term and Hubert Humphrey is sworn in as Vice President. An 8.7 Rat Islands, Alaska earthquake strikes southwest Alaska, causing a destructive tsunami. Ranger 8 crashes into the moon after a successful mission of photographing possible landing sites. The classical musical film, The Sound of Music, premieres at the Rivoli Theater in New York City. On March 7, 1965, known as Bloody Sunday, 200 Alabama state troopers clash with 525 civil rights demonstrators in Selma, Alabama. On March 17th in Montgomery, Alabama, 1,600 civil rights marchers demonstrate at the courthouse. The world's first space nuclear power reactor, SNAP-10A, is launched by the United States and operated for 43 days. In the Palm Sunday tornado outbreak of 1965, an estimated 51 tornadoes hit the Midwest, killing from 256 to 271 people. The 6.7 Puget Sound earthquake affected western Washington, causing 7 deaths and $12.5 to $28 million in losses. President Johnson announces his order to increase the number of U.S. troops in South Vietnam from 75,000 to 125,000, and to double the number of men drafted per month from 17,000 to 35,000. President Johnson signs the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and the Pentagon tells Johnson to increase troops in Vietnam to 400,000. Anti-war protests heat up as they draw 100,000 in 80 U.S. cities and around the world. In Washington, D.C., a march draws 25,000. A Charlie Brown Christmas, the first Peanuts television special, premieres on CBS and becomes a Christmas tradition. Cosmic microwave background radiation, the Internet, pickleball, mace spray, Yoplait yogurt, and barrel of monkeys are invented, and the songs Wooly Bully, I Can't Help Myself, My Girl, This Diamond Ring, Count Me In, It's Not Unusual, Do You Believe in Magic, 8 Days a Week, Help, I Got You Babe, Cara Mia, and Cast Your Fate to the Wind are released. Now we'll take a look at the 1965 Lincoln Memorial Cent Special Mint Set coin. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1965 Lincoln Memorial Cent Special Mint Set coin. Now we will take a look at the 1965 Washington Quarter. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1965 Washington Quarter. Now we will take a look at the 1965 Kennedy half dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1965 Kennedy half dollar. Now we will cover the history of the year 1966. In the year 1966, the first SR-71 Blackbird reconnaissance aircraft goes into service at Bill Air Force Base. The U.S. announces it will substantially increase its number of troops in Vietnam as more anti-war demonstrations are held across the United States. President Johnson signs the 1966 Uniform Time Act, dealing with daylight saving time. On May 15th, tens of thousands of anti-war demonstrators Again, picket at the White House, then at the National Monument. The Surveyor 1 lands in Oceanus Procellarum on the Moon, becoming the first U.S. spacecraft to land on another planet. On June 8th, the 1966 Topeka tornado registers an F5 and becomes the first to exceed $100 million in damages, while 16 people are killed and hundreds more are injured. Thousands of homes are damaged or destroyed. West Coast Airlines Flight 956 DC-9 crashes with 18 fatal injuries and no survivors south of Wim, Oregon. On October 5th, an experimental breeder reactor at the Enrico Fermi Nuclear Generating Station in Michigan suffers a partial meltdown. The Cuban Adjustment Act comes into force, allowing 123,000 Cubans the opportunity to apply for permanent residence in the United States. Future President Ronald Reagan, a Republican, is elected Governor of California. On November 17th, an amazing Leonid meteor shower passes over Arizona at the rate of 2,300 a minute for 20 minutes. Bugles, Chips, Cool Whip, Fresca, Slurpee, White Out, the automated teller machine, and NyQuil is invented, and the songs California Dreamin', What Becomes of the Broken-Hearted, Last Train to Clarksville, Cherish, Reach Out, I'll Be There, Red Rubber Ball, Bus Stop, Daydream, For What It's Worth, Wouldn't It Be Nice, and Green Grass are released. Now we'll take a look at the 1966 Lincoln Memorial Cent Special Mint Set coin. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1966 Lincoln Memorial Cent Special Mint Set coin. Now we will take a look at the 1966 Washington Quarter. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1966 Washington Quarter. Now we will take a look at the 1966 Kennedy Half Dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1966 Kennedy Half Dollar. Now we will cover the history of the year 1967. In the year 1967, the 25th Amendment to the United States Constitution is ratified and enacted, outlining rules of presidential succession. On April 14th, in San Francisco, 10,000 march against the Vietnam War, along with demonstrations in New York City. On April 21st, an outbreak of tornadoes strike the upper Midwest section of the United States, killing 33 and injuring 500 people. Thurgood Marshall is confirmed and sworn in as the first African American justice of the United States Supreme Court. The Patterson-Gimlin film is shot in Bluff Creek, California, supposedly capturing a Bigfoot on tape. Tens of thousands of Vietnam War protesters march in Washington, D.C., and eventually advance to the Pentagon. President Lyndon B. Johnson holds a secret meeting with a group of the nation's most prestigious leaders, or wise men, asking them to suggest ways to unite the American people behind the war effort. They suggest that more optimistic reports should be given on the progress of the war. NASA launches the Saturn V rocket, carrying the uncrewed Apollo 4 test spacecraft from Cape Canaveral. Soul singer Otis Redding is killed at age 26 when the airplane he is on crashes into Lake Monona. The crash claims the lives of 4 other band members and the pilot, with the only survivor being fellow musician Ben Colley. The Silver Bridge over the Ohio River in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, collapses, killing 46 people. And the Big Mac, Pulsars, Gatorade, Mini Cassette, and Twix chocolate bars are invented. And the songs Penny Lane, Daydream Believer, Can't Take My Eyes Off You, Windy, Apples, Peaches, Pumpkin Pie, A Whiter Shade of Pale, Up, Up and Away, Release Me, and Reflections are released. Now we will take a look at the 1967 Lincoln Memorial Cent Special Mint Set coin. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1967 Lincoln Memorial Cent Special Mint Set coin. Now we will take a look at the 1967 Washington Quarter. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1967 Washington Quarter. Now we will take a look at the 1967 Kennedy half dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1967 Kennedy half dollar. Now we will cover the history of the year 1968. In the year 1968, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is at 906.4. First class U.S. postage is raised from 5 cents to 6 cents, and President Johnson calls for the non-conversion of the U.S. dollar. Influential American news reporter Walter Cronkite shows his disdain for the Vietnam War effort during a broadcast, which influences President Johnson not to seek another term in the 1968 presidential election. U.S. Senator Robert F. Kennedy enters the race for the Democratic Party presidential nomination. The United States Congress repeals the requirement for a gold reserve to back U.S. currency. The film 2001: A Space Odyssey premieres in Washington, D.C., and Planet of the Apes is released in theaters. One day after his "I've Been to the Mountaintop" speech at Mason Temple in Memphis, Tennessee, Martin Luther King Jr. is shot dead at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. Following his death, riots erupt in U.S. cities. The U.S. nuclear-powered submarine Scorpion sinks with 99 men aboard, 400 miles southwest of the Azores. On June 5th, leading 1968 Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy is shot at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, California. He dies from injuries the following day. The Central Intelligence Agency's Phoenix program against the Viet Cong is officially established. NASA launches Apollo 7, the first crewed Apollo mission, televised from orbit, testing the lunar module docking. In the U.S. presidential election of 1968, Richard Nixon defeats Vice President Hubert Humphrey and independent George Wallace. Dynamic Random Access Memory, or DRAM, the beanbag chair, Hot Wheels, Pringles, and Ziploc are invented, and the songs Hey Jude, Love is Blue, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, This Guy's in Love with You, Stoned Soul Picnic, The Horse, Classical Gas, Suspicious Minds, If I Can Dream, Eleanor, and Wichita Lineman are released. Now we will take a look at the 1968 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1968 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Now we will take a look at the 1968 S. Washington Quarter proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1968 S. Washington Quarter proof. Now we'll take a look at the 1968 D. Kennedy half dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1968 D. Kennedy half dollar. Now we'll cover the history of the year 1969. In the year 1969, an explosion aboard aircraft carrier USS Enterprise near Hawaii kills 27 and injures 314 people. Richard Nixon is sworn in as the 37th president, and Spiro Agnew is sworn in as the 39th vice president. A blowout on Union Oil's platform in the Dos Quadras offshore oil field spills 80,000 to 100,000 barrels of crude oil into a channel and onto the beaches of Santa Barbara County in Southern California. The U.S. population reaches 200 million, and the Boeing 747 makes its maiden flight. Former U.S. General and President Dwight D. Eisenhower dies after a long illness at Walter Reed Army Medical Center. The first U.S. troop withdrawals are made from Vietnam, as Nixon announces 25,000 U.S. troops will be withdrawn. The $500, $1,000, $5,000, and $10,000 bills are officially removed from circulation. On July 20th, 1969, at 3:17 p.m. Eastern Time, Apollo 11's lunar module, Eagle, lands on the moon's surface. An estimated 650 million people worldwide watch as Neil Armstrong takes the first historic steps on the surface of the moon. U.S. President Nixon declares the Nixon Doctrine, by which the U.S. expects Asian allies to take care of their own military defenses. The Woodstock Festival is held in upstate New York, including some of the era's top rock musicians. The Category 5 Hurricane Camille kills 248 people, causing $1.5 billion in damage. A 1.2 megaton thermonuclear device is tested at Amchitka Island, Alaska, codenamed Project Milrow. On November 15th, 250,000 to 500,000 protesters stage a peaceful demonstration against the war named March Against Death. ARPANET, Internet, glue sticks, laser printer, Capri Sun, Frosty, Funyuns, Nerf, Lego Duplo, and Tic Tac are invented, and the songs Aquarius, Let the Sunshine In, Crystal Blue Persuasion, Grazing in the Grass, Going in Circles, Sweet Caroline, Bad Moon Rising, Good Morning Starshine, Rhymes and Reasons, Leaving on a Jet Plane, More Today Than Yesterday, Galveston, and Hooked on a Feeling are released. Now we'll take a look at the 1969 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1969 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Now we'll take a look at the 1969 S. Washington Quarter proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1969 S. Washington Quarter proof. Finally, we'll take a look at the 1969 D Kennedy half dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1969 D Kennedy half dollar. Hey, I really hope you enjoyed this video and found it to be interesting. For more videos, please like and subscribe. Thank you! Keep on collecting and have a great day.